Lately I've been pondering the cautionary tale behind the "don't let the Nazi in the bar" story, and how it applies outside its original application. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the story, Reddit and Twitter posts around the year of 2020 told the story, and it goes about something like this. I was at a shitty crust punk bar once getting an after-work beer, one of those shitholes where the bartenders clearly hate you. So the bartender and I were ignoring one another when someone sits next to me and he immediately says, "No, get out!" And the dude next to me says, "Hey, I'm not doing anything, I'm a paying customer." And the bartender reaches under the counter for a bat and says, "Out now." And then the dude leaves kind of yelling. And he was dressed in a punk uniform. Anyway, I asked what that was all about, and the bartender was like, "You didn't see his vest, but it was all Nazi shit. Iron crosses and stuff. You get to recognize them." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he continues, "You have to nip it in the bud immediately. These guys come in, and it's always a nice, polite one, and you serve them because you don't want to cause a scene. And they become a regular, and after a while, they bring a friend. And that dude is cool, too. And then they bring friends, and the friends bring friends, and once they have enough numbers, they stop being cool, and then you realize, oh shit, this is a Nazi bar now. And it's too late because they're entrenched, and if you try to kick them out, they cause a problem. So you have to shut them down." And I was like, "Oh, damn." And he said, "Yeah, you have to ignore their reasonable arguments because their end goal is terrible." And then he went back to ignoring me. But I haven't forgotten that at all.
For years, they would go out in rallies like the one at Charlottesville and be open about their neo-Nazism. One thing you'll notice is that they haven't been doing that much after that or after the Unite the Right 2 rally. The physical attacks, doxing, and financial sanctions by companies they've endured has inhibited neo-Nazis from being overt in their activities. However, many people advocate for the end goals of neo-Nazism by rebranding themselves as conservative Republicans.
How are neo-Nazis dangerous? Besides their end goals of exterminating Jews and killing or enslaving people who aren't Anglo-Saxons, the Nazi bar story shows that their outward behavior of civility is a means to an end. Same goes for their advocacy of freedom of speech. The original Nazis were aggressive like the neo-Nazis in the bar once they took it over, but push for freedom of speech when they are not in power, but for their own speech. Once the original Nazis took over, of course they would strip civil liberties and tolerated only their own ideology. This may not be original, but tankies are notorious for doing the same thing. They tout Marxist-Leninist symbols and are champions of their own right to free speech in Western countries like the US, which is how the KGB gave headaches to the FBI. But every time Marxist-Leninists take over countries, they turn them into totalitarian dystopias where they rule as an oligarchy with only their own interest in mind, and oftentimes they commit genocide like the Soviet Union did, like the People's Republic of China are doing right now, or how the Cambodian genocide took place under the leadership of the Khmer Rouge.
Case in point, Vladimir Lenin himself said, "The capitalists will sell us the rope with which we will hang them." While Lenin was rather progressive for a socialist compared with his successors, he set up a system that allowed the likes of Leonid Brezhnev and Boris Yeltsin to rule a country that became so corrupt that it functioned the same as the Kingdom of France sans the line of succession. This is where the red fascist accusation comes from, leveled by anarcho-communists. And while anarcho-communist states tend to be rebellions that get quashed by more powerful countries, most Marxist-Leninist states are equally, if not more oppressive towards the workers they are supposed to be run by. As someone who is reviled by many ANCOMs and progressives, I assure you I'm not saying all of this to appease them. Trust me, that's not worth the effort. I am of ethnic groups that would lose the game of racial musical chairs the Nazis would play, and I don't want my Jewish and non-white friends to be victims of Nazi goals. In the past few decades, white supremacists try to make everyone forget they persecuted Irish immigrants, how the KKK was anti-Catholic, or how the original Nazis persecuted the Slavs along and at best used them as cannon fodder. Computing Forever may have fallen for it, but I will never become a Nazi. If you are to take anything away from this video, it's that if you run a YouTube channel or a website with a community, it isn't a good idea to appeal to the wider audience the way unprincipled capitalists like Games Workshop did with Dawn of War 3, when racial supremacists and shills rules for any country that hates the United States comes into troll, just kick them out. If you don't, they will take over. Nobody wants to share the same space with people who harass them and want to kill them, so you need to make the right choice. I know I have. Thanks for watching. As you may have guessed, I used an AI-generated voice cloned from my own voice because I got tired of editing myself catching my breath or stuttering. Obviously, I won't use this when talking to people in discussion videos, but this is a big time saver.